I used to think that rest was just stopping altogether. Finally slowed down, I actually realized I have no idea how to rest at all. Welcome back to the Becoming Podcast, Faithful and Unfinished. Over the last few episodes, we've talked about obedience, quiet, identity, and today we're going to talk about rest, specifically what it means and why it can feel so uncomfortable when we finally try and do it. So let's be honest about what rest actually feels like. I don't know about you, but for me, I have this vision in my mind that rest is being at the spa. It's being alone. It's having quiet time. But to be honest, as I slowed down and committed to an entire year of rest, yes, you heard that right. Last year, I committed to a year of rest. It actually felt like a little bit more restless. I resisted it heavily. It can also feel like guilt because we're so used to doing things a different way. And it can often feel like anxiety inducing or a nagging sense that you're behind. Committing to a year of rest for me, I had to fight and battle so hard with the idea or the concept really of, okay, if I take a year off and I'm not producing anything, I'm not showing up online, I'm not creating content, I'm going to be so far behind. Like, what is going to happen? And I think in my mind, I had an idea of what rest looked like and how it would feel. And then actually doing it, it's like a whole nother story. And I think, how do we find rest when our lives are so busy? So, as much as I committed to taking a year of rest, I also still work full time. I also have a daughter who's 4 and so much fun and full of energy. And so for me, it was like, how do I find rest even having such a full schedule? So for me, I took off the table one thing: creating content, producing, creating something new, strategizing. That was the package that I just removed off the table. And so for me, what I had to learn to discover is, one, what are the things that I found that actually felt restful to me? But I also had to battle the guilt of I shoulda, coulda, woulda. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. It should look like this. It shouldn't look like that. And so I wanted to share kind of how I worked through that feeling of restlessness, because it's like when you finally sit down and it's like, okay, now what? Right? And for me, I would always constantly grab my phone. And so I had to like put boundaries around that, even so that I literally had to force myself to have downtime. So the first few months of exploring rest for me meant, okay, I work all day. In the evening, I will be present with my daughter, spend time with her. And then when she goes to bed at 7, I'm going to get in bed. This dynamic of where we live is I had to stay in my room just because of being quiet. And I just chose that as my downtime. But the first little while, I was still trying to prove to God, I think, something by I have to study, I have to do this, I have to do that. And I was still creating to do lists and I was kind of resisting actual true rest. And so I had to finally come to terms with, okay, I actually need to decide in the moment what I feel like I have energy for and what I need today. And I think that learning that was one of the best things I've could have learned, because going into a new season that I'm in now, where I'm still doing all those same things, working full time, being a mom, but now I've added to my plate producing a podcast, which means not just sitting here recording, it means all the editing, all the planning, all the tech behind it, all the emails, all the website development, all of that stuff that's now on my plate. But if I didn't learn how to listen to my body, listen to what I needed and what actually rejuvenated me and brought rest into my life, I would be struggling in this current season even more so. And so I think oftentimes we think when we're resting, it means we're doing nothing and there's not like no progress. But I've actually found quite the opposite of taking that time to rest actually recharged me. And it helped me really learn how to tune in with myself and what my needs were and help me identify what actually helps me feel rested and what doesn't. Because rest isn't just about sleep. I think that that's one misconception, that rest is just sleep. I think sleep is a big part of it. And if you're not sleeping, prioritizing sleep is really good. But also finding the other things that make you feel rested, but also the things that make you feel energetic when you need it. And also just embracing this season of rest, whatever that looks like for you. So you may be working full time and a mom like me, and you may struggle with trying to find moments of rest for yourself, moments of stillness and those pockets of peace, right? And so I think the other thing is we often go from like, it has to be zero or it has to be all the things. And I think when we adopt a lifestyle that includes rest, we sit somewhere in the middle. And so whether you actually have to like take dedicated time to rest like I did, or You just have to find ways to incorporate rest into your life. Both are so powerful and both require practice to figure it out and figure out what works for you. I think something else to point out too is that if this feels uncomfortable for you, and that the idea of rest feels uncomfortable for you, it's probably a good sign that rest is actually needed. And it also means that you're digging deeper. You're becoming more in tune with yourself and figuring out what are your needs and what do you need. But I think oftentimes we have that outside pressure based on society and social media and the highlight reels that we constantly see from people that we can't stop. We can't slow down. We're going to be behind. And those are all really lies. And if we imagine just going full throttle all the time, how are we going to be able to continue the race, right? If we think about life as a marathon and the things that we want to do as a marathon as opposed to a sprint, we have to be in this for the long haul. And so adopting rest practices in your life slowly but surely will continue to assist you doing the things that you desire to do, one, that you were called to do and put on this earth to do. And it's all part of your becoming process. And the sooner we can embrace it, the sooner we can be in a more restful spot. And to be honest, even through my entire year of taking rest, I still really struggled badly with my sleep. And I had to create a lot of boundaries around what rest was going to look like for me. So that meant having my phone away when I would go to bed get in my bed at 7:30. Phone would have to go away, put in the kitchen so that I wasn't mindlessly scrolling and filling my time with something else and relying or being codependent on something else. It meant finding things that felt good in that restful period. So whether that was reading my Bible, doing devotions, journaling, or it was just watching TV because I just wanted to relax. That was part of it as well. It was all about focusing on how do I feel right now? What do I actually need right now? And what do I have energy for? And what is going to give me the most value for what I need? I think another big part of it too is even in this time for me, I also was focusing on my wellness habits. I was walking 5 kilometers a day before work, which I love. And I worked really hard to get there, but I didn't start with 5 kilometers. I started with 20 minutes a day. That took me 20 minutes to walk a kilometer, pretty much. It took me 17 minutes, my first walk, to walk 1 kilometer. And now I average about 10 and a half minutes per kilometer and I enjoy it. It's like a mental health break for me. I also use it to feed my soul. So listening to podcasts or listening to sermons, something to edify my soul in the process to help recharge me. It also meant strength training to help me get stronger and feel better. Also, those things helped with my rest and my sleep so that I was sleeping better. And so, even in this busier season again, I'm still doing those things that I've learned in that time where I didn't have all the other distractions of all my big to-do list. I was focusing on those things. And as I started to build the podcast and all the pieces, if I'm really honest with you, I started going into my old mentality and my old identity of hustle, hustle, hustle. I have to do. I have this massive to-do list. I got to get it through. And I recognized really, really quickly, ooh, I need to take a beat. I need to take a step back because if I continue operating in this capacity, I'm going to exhaust myself, one. I'm probably gonna resent the process, and then I'm going to undo all the work I just did in learning how to rest, embrace it, and actually enjoy it. And so if you're like, "Sarah, you are crazy. How can you even have a conversation about rest? One, how do I find time for it?" If I can find time for it, you can find time for it. You also have to make a plan for it. It's not just something that's just, like, gonna magically appear for you. It is being intentional about it, and it might mean taking small steps towards where you want to be in terms of rest or anything in general. And it means showing up and committing to it for yourself and then just adding on it, right? And assessing what's working, what's not, and taking the pressure off of, I have to do. So, practical way to actually start implementing rest in your everyday life, if you know that it's something that you need to do, is to take a look at your life. Look at your schedule. What does your schedule look like? Where are the pockets that you can find rest? So it could mean that during your lunch hour, you take 20 minutes and you go for a walk and sit in the park for a little bit just to have rest. Rest doesn't necessarily, again, have to mean sleep. It can mean knowing what your bedtime schedule is. And if you're used to going to bed at 10 o'clock and you're staying busy until that time, maybe you scale back half an hour. Okay, at 9:30, I'm going to take some dedicated time for rest and find what's going to work for you, whether that's getting into bed, having a tea, reading something, journaling, just taking that moment to rest as you wind down through the evening. It might mean that. you might need to be more drastic, like I had to be, which was, okay, this lifestyle is not working for me. My nervous system is on fire. My inflammation is through the roof. I don't feel myself and I'm foggy all of the time. Those were some of the things that I was really struggling with. And so I had to commit to that whole entire year of rest. And every time I would get an idea, oh, I should do this. Oh, I should do that. And God would remind me, Sarah, you took a year of rest. Commit that, follow up with your commitment and know that there is purpose in it and that there's value in it and stop being so hard on yourself. And I think that that was probably one of the biggest pieces to actually embrace was who I actually was beating myself up for if I wasn't producing, if I wasn't doing this and that, if life didn't look like this and this. And if I'm honest, in a year of rest, I actually accomplished a lot. I struggled a lot for a couple months at work, just figuring out a rhythm and with my client book. And I was able to focus on getting my book to a better place and just finished a quarter and had an amazing quarter as a result of the work I was able to put in at work. I was able to do a ton of fun things with Brooklyn. And last year we went to Mexico together. I was able to take my mom with us. I went to Greece with work we do a sales summit every year. We're heading to Lisbon in about a month. And then I also took a solo vacation in December. I also went up north to visit my mom a lot with Brooklyn. We took a lot of time on the weekends just to enjoy and have fun together. And I was able to be so much more present for Brooklyn and be present as a mom rather than thinking about my growing to-do list. And it allowed me to be in a place of enjoying my life, and it gave me permission to just chill and to not associate any guilt with it. And I really needed that as somebody who was always a producer and who was a high achiever and who just kinda, like, went full throttle in anything she did, let's be honest. So, taking that step back has allowed me to approach literally every area of my life in an entirely different manner without the constant rush. Even when I speak, I used to talk super fast, and that's something I've had to be mindful of how do I slow down even my speech? How do I just bring calm and peace to every area and let it soak in every area to operate in such a better place? And I know I mentioned it in the last episode as well, but I talked a lot about how oftentimes our worth is tied to our productivity and rest doesn't seem productive and it doesn't seem to add value. But I can tell you, somebody who's on the other side of a year of it, I have had so much added to my life just from calming down and adopting the practice of rest. I think also something to think about is we don't actually struggle with the idea of rest because we're lazy. For us, the idea of rest is actually relinquishing control and letting go of it, which that is the scarier part. And that's the part a lot of us, I think, don't actually want to admit is that if we admit we need rest and that we take downtime, it's really uncomfortable because it's so forward. Pushing through it is actually really important. Again, like I said, I resisted it the first several months. I was like, it has to look like this, it has to look like that. And when we can take that beat, it just will make a huge difference. I think another piece to rest that I think is really important is actually the sleep part. And so adopting healthy habits when it comes to your sleep routine and sleep hygiene, there are so many things that go into that. So if I were to draft the perfect sleep routine or sleep hygiene practice for you, an hour before you plan on going to bed, plan a wind down routine. Can look different for everybody. So part of what I do is phone goes away. So I leave my phone in the kitchen. So it's not even in my room. It goes on sleep at 7:30 p.m. automatically. So I've already set that up so that I don't have to think about it. If you can automate things, it's even better. I get into bed and it might be different every night. It could be I'm working till 8:30 on stuff with the podcast. And then at 8:30, okay, this is it. It's time to unwind. It could mean doing face masks. It could mean getting a hot bath. It could be having a tea while you read. It could be journaling. It could be reading your devotions or your Bible. It could be unloading and having a conversation with a friend. But you're creating an environment in your sleep area that is signaling to your body it's time to wind down. So lower your lights. Try to avoid blue light. If you have a TV in your room, try not to watch it. Sometimes I still do because I just feel like it, and that's okay. I did last night. And I think just what you want to do is signal to your body that it's time to go to sleep so that when you put your head on the pillow, you fall asleep quicker. I have also found that having a sound machine really helps. So I just have on Spotify, I found a playlist that's rain dropping. I was never a sound machine girl until I had a daughter. And I realized how actually calming that was. And because water I find calming, so whether it's waves or whatever, just creating that environment for you Also, if you're lucky enough to have a space that's just your bedroom and nothing else, not doing other things in your bedroom and allowing your room to be the place that you actually just focus on sleep is really helpful. I have my office in my room, so I make sure if I am working, I'm at my desk just so that I know that like my bed is my safe space. It's my restful place. It's like my big pillow. And when I get into bed, it's signaling to my body, okay, it's time to sleep. It's time to unwind. I've also, this might be vain, but I've also made my room really pretty. Also, my home. This is my living room. And I, for some reason, have adopted pink everywhere. So I bought new bedding that I really liked that was pink and had hearts on it. It's my obsession since I've had a daughter. We love pink and hearts, and I've done pink and hearts for her. I do it for me. There's something about it that just makes me feel really good. I also started wearing pretty pajamas. Nothing expensive. I think my favorite pair of pajamas were $5 on clearance at Walmart, but they're satin, have a little bit of lace, they're shorts and a tank top, and it just makes me feel good about myself. So all those little things do add up. And again, I'm giving you a list of things, but this is things I've developed over the last several years when it comes to my sleep hygiene. I also focus on trying to get 8 hours of sleep a night. That's where I feel my optimal. If I dip below that, anything below 7, I'm not the happiest camper and I feel foggy through the day. And so I focus on that. But a big piece, in my opinion, around all of this stuff, when we talk about rest, we talk about taking care of our body, we talk about taking care of our spirit, we talk about spending time in the Word. What it really comes down to is figuring out, what do you actually want life to look like? What do you want to embody? How do you want to feel? And those are really big questions to sit down and reflect with, because if we don't reflect on them, or we can recognize that things aren't working for us in our life right now, we might say they're not working, but unless you actually like reflect and come up with a plan on how to change that, you have to have a direction of where you're going. And so I highly recommend taking a pause and figuring out, okay, in my days, these are the things that I do, even writing out what your schedule looks like and seeing on paper, like, this is how busy it is, this is how much is full, where are there any pockets of rest that I can implement, and then thinking of, what is it that I actually want life to look like? Do I want life to be busy all the time? Do I want to be working all the time? Do I want to be spending every waking moment doing something? And if you will reflect and you're like, yeah, that's what I want, I would challenge you to say, is that what I'm used to? Or is that what I actually desire? And if that is what you desire, it also might be a time to reflect of, why do you desire that? So I used to desire being busy all the time. And for me, it was because I was trying to fill a void to feel worthy enough, that I was impactful, that I had some value, that I was worth loving, whatever it might be. For you, it might be a good time to take stock of, how does being busy actually fuel you? And is it healthy? And those are really hard questions to sit with. And then the work beyond that is then actually implementing some of the changes you want. And I will say, it can be really uncomfortable to start with, but it is so worth it. And as we continue in this becoming process, we start figuring out what works. We find a rhythm that works for us. And regardless of what's going on in your life, what season you're in, you've adopted certain habits and practices that are going to sustain you even in busy times. So I can now, if I'm in a busy season, say, for example, work is really, really busy. There are some weeks that I have like 6 client calls in a day, which is a lot. And I'm spent after a day of work. But I also then know those nights I really have to take a beat and I have to rest, because I have to honor my body so that I have the capacity to continue to show up for the things that I have to do. And again, you'll find that rhythm, and again, it becomes ditching that all or nothing thinking of like, has to look like this all the time. It's not always gonna look like that. It's not always gonna be super busy, and learning how to balance in those times is really, really important in that process as well. And when you can learn the practice of rest and what works for you, it will make those seasons that are busier so much easier to navigate and figure out, because you've had practices to figure out what does work for you and how to accomplish those pieces of rest as well. So today's scripture is from Matthew 11. You've probably heard it before, so let's go to it. Okay, so Matthew 11:28-30. My yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light. And there's so much power in this scripture verse. First, we see that invitation of, if we're weary, are we tired? He invites us to come to him with that. And like, I think that's also really cool to think of like, God wants us to come to Him when we're weary. Like, when we feel like we've got too much on our plate, when we feel like stress is too high, He desires that for us and to come in connection with Him in that space. And it's not, maybe I'll give you rest, maybe I'll help you, maybe it'll do something. It says, no, I will give you rest. And He wants us to exchange what's heavy for us for His yoke, which is light, and taking the burden off of our shoulders, literally just saying, like, honestly, I visualize just being like, "Okay, here you go," and Him taking it, and Him almost giving me nothing in exchange because that's how light His burden is, and that is what He actually desires for us so that we can walk in this world light. If you think about it, think about walking with a big, huge, heavy backpack full of weights. How hard that feels, your shoulders are trying to, like, hold it all. It's hard to walk, it's hard to, like, take a step, it's hard to trudge through, it's hard to just take one step at a time, let alone run when our burden is that heavy. But He's literally just saying, "Here, let me take it off your shoulders. Let me just help you. You don't have to do anything for it, just come to me." But oftentimes we resist that coming to Him and actually resting and surrendering. We think in our minds, I can do it. I can carry it. I can do it by myself. This is what it feels like. And I think that's the other thing, and that's a lie of the enemy, is we get so used to carrying it that we think that's how it's supposed to feel. And I'm here to tell you, as somebody who has been a chronic doer, that's not how it's supposed to feel. It is possible to feel rested. It is possible to feel at peace. It is possible to feel joyful in your life. It doesn't have to feel dark. It doesn't have to feel scary. It doesn't have to be complicated. And you deserve, that's what God desires for you, to feel that lightness and to not have to carry all of the crummy stuff going on. I say that all while also still going through bankruptcy, while having to rebuild life, being single, being a mom, all of those things. Navigating being in the workforce after running my own business for 7 years, there were a lot of heavy things on my plate. Navigating the finances of it and bad news throughout the year, still also dealing with major physical limitations from having a torn hamstring, all of those things. But even in the midst of, like, the crud, I can still be faithful, even though I'm unfinished. I can still show up and I can still take a breath, and I can still rest in knowing that I don't have to figure it out alone, and neither do you. And I think that's the invitation today is you don't have to figure this out alone, and you don't have to carry it all alone, and you can take a beat and you can take some rest. So rest isn't about doing nothing. I think I've explained that in, like, what my year looked like. It's about just letting go of what you were actually never meant to carry and releasing it and being okay with it. Also coming to peace and to terms with it, which I know can be a challenge. So here's my invitation to you this week, okay? This is going to be a challenge. It might not be easy. It might be easy, but probably not if you're not used to it. I want you to try resting without justifying it. No reason, no excuses, no, it's supposed to look like this. And let the rest be imperfect. So remember, just like anything else we're doing, trying something new, we have to practice at it to get better at it. So it's good. It might take some time to figure out what rest looks like for you. And I want you to stay in that discomfort. And instead of escaping it by, like, picking up your phone or doing something else, I want you to sit in that with no distractions. I know that that's easier said than done. I will admit that I have had a really unhealthy relationship with my phone. And so putting my phone away at the end of the night or putting my phone away when I'm present with my daughter or during work hours has been monumental in allowing me to concentrate when I need to concentrate and not get distracted. So sit with the uncomfortable. I think the other thing to address is oftentimes when we're by ourselves, and I'm by myself most of the time, I work from home remotely. And sometimes the only humans I see when I get out of the house to go pick up Brooklyn from daycare. Okay, so that's not a very long amount of time. And then I'm with her until she goes to bed at 7, and then I'm by myself again. So I understand that being by ourselves can feel intimidating, and to start, it's going to feel uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to it. But I've actually learned to enjoy it, and I actually crave it. And so when I do get really busy and I am around a lot of people, I find I have to have time to retreat, to recharge. And I would say I'm an extrovert. I have no problem being around people and talking. I love talking to people and connecting. And so, as somebody who that is their natural nature, I never thought I'd actually enjoy being by myself and having quiet time and having rest time. So I can tell you it is possible to get there. And it might look different for you. It might feel more balanced for you. It might not be as extreme as I've had to be, but sit in that uncomfortable and just keep trying and just keep showing up. That's all you have to do. Just keep trying, just keep showing up. And if you're like, I couldn't even think about doing a night by myself, start with half an hour, start with 15 minutes. Again, you don't have to do all the things all the time. Start with small things to get used to them and then continue to increase as you go. Just a reminder as well, like everything else in life, you don't have to master rest. You just need to stay long enough for it to do its work. So it's going to look different for everybody. What I've had to go through is going to be different than you. So it's got to fit for your life and what your needs are. And so remember that. It's a personal discovery journey and figuring out what it is for you that works. If rest feels like effort, I want you to know that you're not failing. It just means you need to practice, and that's okay. You are learning. It's a process to learn it. But I want you to also know that God does some of his deepest work while we are resting and that it actually is productive, whether we think it is or not. And all he's asking you to do is to stop striving and to just come to him. If this blessed you, share this with somebody who is tired or just sit quietly in the invitation. Rest is not something to achieve. It's something for you to receive. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.